I'm Big Alibob, West Side Most Valuable Pimp, Gangster Crip. I'm originated out of West LA, moved to the Mid-City, but we represent West LA.
I'm Big Ski, original West LA, from this area, the Sugar Hill area, Normandy and Washington, Western and Washington.
So both you guys grew up in two different parts of Los Angeles, but ended up repping the same thing.
He moved to the block.
I moved to this side of LA. So I grew up in the Marvins. The Marvins raised me. I used to run with the Marvins. Shout out to the MGCs. Rest in peace, Crazy D. They raised me. I was going to pastor. I got kicked out. And they sent me to Mount Vernon at the time because my mom moved on LaSalle, where we currently at right now. And he was one of the first dudes I met, you know? Crazy cat right here, you know? And so, I mean, we like night and day, but you know what I mean? Peanut butter and jelly, so yeah. I met him at Mount Vernon, and he didn't move on this block because he lived originally on Western, across the street from the original great Chapelitas. And, but we met in school. We met walking home from school because he was connected to a couple other cats that lived on this block that he was cool with. I know they knew each other. I don't think he was hanging with them, but everybody was familiar from 24th Street. Because, you know, 24th Street cool, then most people go 24th, then Mount Vernon.
I was living in 1934, Southwestern. That's where I was living at before we moved here.
Now that's the house right across from Chapelita.
Yeah, but let's keep it 1,000. I remember it was Mama Mia's. It wasn't Chapelitas back then. It was Mama Mia's when I was little. Then it turned into Chapelitas.
At some point, you two guys clicked so tough that you decided to start something. Was this like 7th grade or 8th grade?
7th grade.
7th grade. Our family had just been able to buy this house. And so that kind of connected us because he lived directly across the street from me, and we already knew each other from school.
When we started running again, I was still claiming Marvin. I was still banging for Marvin, going to Mount Vernon. I knew a couple people that went to Mount Vernon, that went to Marvin Avenue Elementary.
Him and his cousins. Shout out to rest in peace, Crazy D,
right.
Delano, and Rolando.
Right.
Big gun.
Big shotgun. I was little shotgun. But as I moved over here, being a youngster, obviously, I'm way across the end, and my interest started running with these guys. I still would go over because I still had my aunt lived over there in the Marvins. We was in the hip hop as well because I had moved to New York in the early '80s and came back to LA. So I still had a little hip hop, and then we connected with a cat named LA Cool from Hip Hop Clan. But the MVP thing started on LaSalle Ave.
On this block.
On this block, you know. And we was into women. I mean, we was young players. And we was like, you know, everybody's claiming, you know, either Crip blood or hustler. Let's do something out of the norm.
Let's do something out of the norm. Let's do something different.
It just started off as Most Valuable Pimp?
Period.
Most Valuable Pimp.
No Crip, no gang,
no
MVP.
Period. MVP. 4 people. Me, Bob, my other brother, shout out to Big Ock. Big Ock live in this building. And JB, he lives in that building that's around on Harvard. But you can jump the fence and he's on the block.
So JB came out with the name.
He created the name.
At that time, it was other people around here, scattered gangs. We ran into some other cats that was claiming West Side Pimps. Big Menace, Top Dollar, a couple other cats that was connected to that. It was a discussion made because they obviously, it had to be to the point where we had to come up with either we was gonna join them or they was gonna join us, and we kept the MVP name, so they had to join us.
We converted Top Dollar and Menace to MVP. And in that time, when we were creating our situation, there were already situations in the area that were up and going, like Gramercy Street Hustler, shout out to the Gramercies.
Right.
Manhattan Mob, shout out to the Manhattan Mob. KOD, shout out to the KODs and the Sex Jerk. Those were factions that were already going around that were different, that weren't Crip, that weren't Blood. So we were trying to follow in that path, and that's the vein that we struck out at first.
Where did that come from? Because everybody at that time, not everybody, but a lot of people want to be a Blood, want to be from 20s, want to be from Blackstone, they want to be a Crip.
We were never comfortable with assimilation.
Right. We
always wanted to do something different.
We put the MVP thing as a different, but we was always pushing that hip hop gangster because at the time we was still going to a house party. We was young, so we was catching the bus.
I was DJing. You know? We was all over the city doing different things that concerned hip hop, and everybody that we knew either rapped, they either tagged, they DJ'd, they did something that happened to do with hip hop.
Plus, we had the gangster background. He had Crips in his family.
Right.
He grew up in the Bloods around this area, but he was more.
Most of the people in my family, Santana, you know, Compton, Carver, you know, Raymond, you know what I mean, Antoine, and all of them. That's, you know what I mean. So that's the first view I got really good of that type of lifestyle.
When I came, it was almost like second nature kicking it with him because I knew where I was at, you know. I was from Marvin, but I was still a BG, you know. I didn't have no real years under me.
No rank.
No ranking, you know. So yeah, that's why I went to Marvin. When my mom first came from Panama, the first house we lived, we moved to on Hauser in Washington behind Mike's Liquor, and then we moved on Simona. So it was like I was birthed like right there, you know, in the Marvins.
To expound on my side of it, I lived over here. I grew up over here. So there were Bloods around all the time. You rest in peace to Rocky, the Trey K's, the Sambos, the Big Sets. They always were around. So we knew, we grew up with them. The people that live over here, we went to school all together. You feel me? So it's not like you don't know what it is. It's just that you're not a part of it. You know what I mean? It's like you watching a movie, but you watching it, you ain't in the movie.
Being that LaSalle, right here between Washington and the 10 freeway, is really right smack dab in Blood area. What impact, if any, did the Bloods have on you guys as an influence? What impact, if any, did the Bloods have on you guys as an influence?
Well, I want to first say that this was forgotten territory at that point. There were people here like Stefan, but I mean, he's kind of a smoker kind of. There were situations like that, like drug heads, older Bloods that were older, but they weren't doing too good. Let me say that. You know what I mean? So they were here, but they weren't like
active.
Like, for example, this block didn't really have people particularly banging on it. It was just all around it.
Yeah. Exactly. So it kind of geographically happened where we had a pocket to work with. Yeah. You feel me?
Small pocket.
A small pocket.
Would it be fair to say this was sort of like a neutral pocket surrounded by Bloods?
Absolutely. But I can't say surrounded because the next block over is the street that's like the Carter around here. And I saw Skip expound on Harvard. Harvard was a collection of hustlers. They were from different neighborhoods. Mansfields, Playboys, Bloods. It was all kind of people over there getting money. And those were our older people who were around us. So, you know, we were connected to them. So we saw that. And sometimes we dibbled and dabbled. You feel me? Out on Harvard. Because that was the street that you could go to take your little money and flip it.
Okay, so well, let me ask you about this. Chipper lived on this block.
Yep.
And initially he was influenced by the Bloods.
When I met him, he was a Blood.
But then eventually he became a Mansfield and started cripping it.
Right.
Speak on any role that he played, being that he was probably the big homie to y'all on this block.
He is our big homie. Rest in peace.
Rest in peace, Chip.
He took us on our
like
first everything. He's like our big brother. He was a mentor. Anything we needed to know how to do something, if we didn't know how to direct our soldiers, he would tell us. You know what I mean? He would expound on his experiences in YA, in the game, in the streets, and he was instrumental in what we about.
For me, my connection with Chip, because I was out of the Marvins and he was running with the Mansfield, he was banging Mansfield. When I moved over here, it was like an instant connection. Plus, he from Belize, I'm from Panama. And, you know, that foreign plus the trade, you know, the West LA thing, you know, me and him connected, you know, because growing up in the Marvins, it wasn't, you know, it was hard over there. You know, they was hard on you, you know, growing up over there. So I already knew what the lifestyle was about from a small angle, the little time I spent. But Chip, you know, he did. You know, he was that big bro, you know, when, you know, I think he was just happy to have little dudes on the block. You know, and he see how our playerism was. You know, we was able to bring bras by, and of course, he wanted to tap into our work. But that's what he do.
That's what he do.
But we wasn't driving, so we can hop in the car with the Cuddy. You know, and he had the Cadillac on D's.
Regal
you know,
Dayton's.
You know, so we could hop in the Cuddy. Cuddy gonna drop us off, gonna pick us up from the school, and you know what I mean, that attracts. So you know, he was definitely a influence in our upbringing, in our early upbringing.
So basically, did he witness you two and the other two brothers, all four of you guys, start this MVP thing?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Every step.
Yeah,
from 4 guys to 100 guys.
And there's been time Enemigos and came down here and chipped and ran out with his pistol.
Yeah.
You know, out here, you know, we didn't have shootouts and everything on the block, you know, and Chip was there. I mean, he always had his own thing going,
right.
You know, and he always had his allies with other hoods. You know, he still got his family from, you know, Hob, you know, shout out to Hob and everybody, the Blackstone, Hap, them big bros, them his family. So he still had his connections with them.
That was a weird situation because I know you know Chip, and you know that he always functioned, even though he was a Crip, he always functioned with Bloods too. Bloods always came over here to see him from everybody. Always pulled up to this place to see him. And a lot of times, our homies would be standing outside. And so that would create real funk instantly. Shout out to Tanel, Hap, Hob, because some days the wrong person was, the wrong person from our situation was outside, the wrong people. And then they pull up. And it's like Chip not out here to really negotiate the shit because he in the house. So it's like, now we got to figure it out. I got to make sure nothing don't happen to my people. Because remember, even though I'm from here, these people, I knew them before I ever created this for you to be from it. So I can't let nothing happen to those folks. And those folks, you know what I mean? I love them like that. When we see each other, it's good, you know what I mean? But at the same time, on some regular street shit, we don't know what really would have happened, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So Chipper always created situations where we were able to have both without really having a problem.
7th grade year, we create the relationships. Summer of 7th grade going into, 8th grade going into 8th grade is when we created the bond. 8th grade year, we went back to Mount Vernon, and at this point, we're trying to establish the name, Most Valuable Pimp, Most Valuable Pimp, you know, and how do you establish the name? By being kind of popular, dealing with the women, dealing with the girls, and hitting the parties and stuff like that. We really never had no issues because we wasn't really pushing anything to be riled up about. And one of the first issues that we ran in, that schoolhouse issues, I should say, that was issues with the E-dubs. And that happened because LA Cool was rapping, because like I said, everybody that was, he might have not been a rapper, dancer, whatever. We was kind of mixture, you know. And some people was trying to figure out what they gonna do. You in 8th grade, and that situation happened between them two that created a bad taste between both posse's crews at the time. You know what I mean?
So this 8th grade is when the little bit of conflict starts, and is that 1987?
I want to say 87, 88. Yeah. Initially, I knew about them from playing basketball at the parks and schools around here. So I knew what they were, you know what I mean? But it was something new. At that point, they were something new. We weren't the new thing, they were. So it's like, we don't know what they are, what they're about. They're in 2 different areas. Some of them are in Crip areas, some of them are in Blood areas. So at that time, when I first heard about them, I didn't think nothing of them because I felt like we weren't in the same vein of things. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So to speak. We weren't in the same vein. Our goals wasn't the same as theirs. And then later on, I found out that they were rappers. I initially didn't know. I knew Cool had a beef with Shannon. I didn't know about his turf and all of that. It's a rap beef. I'm thinking it's a rapper that he rapped against and he beat him or he feel like he beat him.
Right.
I didn't know.
So 87, 88, you first hear of the E-dubs, or the E-dubs have been out and maybe y'all didn't know about them, or were they after you guys?
It's possibly they had, like you said, had started, but they wasn't at Mount Vernon. So, you know, they came from a different school. I don't know if it was some other school. We don't know. We don't know
really the origins of this.
So E-Dub was not at Mount Vernon in the 7th grade.
Absolutely.
Not to our knowledge.
Not to our knowledge.
You know, we know who started E-Dub. We know that Shannon and his brother Jay is co-founder, but we don't know where, because they didn't go to Mount Vernon. You know, and at that time, you know, it was other, like we said, it was the Sex Jers, KODs. Those was like more of the popular, you know,
more of the ones
trendy gangs at the time.
More of the ones that were there before us.
Okay, so do you remember all the little groups that you were aware of at Mount Vernon by the 8th grade?
Yeah, that's when people start really.
Can you name some of them?
Flexing who they were. 25th Street Posse wasn't there yet, but that's when I start hearing about like GJU.
Yeah.
And I start hearing about Boots. I start hearing about weirdos.
Yeah.
I start hearing about perverts.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But none of those was really at Mount Vernon at the time. In 88,
but I'm just saying I started hearing about them when I was at Mount Vernon.
Right.
You understand what I'm saying?
I don't think Mount Vernon had any like at that time, any crews that was developing at Mount Vernon that was really stood out like us, you know, that was created there and that stood out. Maybe it was different people from different, because Mount Vernon was like a melting pot, you know, for all hoods. You know, you had Crips Bloods there, so you had people coming through there. It was year round, so really nobody really wanted to stay, you know, when they went there. So as far as to answer your question, I can't really say that it was another crew that actually came out of Mount Vernon at the time that we was there that withstood.
Now, were the Avenue Hustlers already faded out? That would have been probably 82, 83.
Yeah, before.
So by the time you guys hit Mount Vernon, I'm assuming that was probably played out.
That was over. They were full-fledged blood,
Yeah.
period. It wasn't no Avenue Hustler. It was neighborhood 20s. It was, you know, BPS. It was the real thing at that point. You didn't see or hear nobody really saying Avenue Hustler. The reason I got the insight on that, because my sister Shavella ran with the Avenue Hustler girls. So shout out to Breezo. I just saw her yesterday. So, you know, all those people, I remember them vividly because they were around my house. They were around constantly, you know what I mean? These are my sister's friends.
Okay, so tell me about how you guys got along with all the Rolling 20s Bloods and the Black Keystone. What was that relationship like?
It was cool because most of us went to 24th together. Me speaking personally, because he comes from a different elementary school. I went to 24th. So I knew Tink. I knew all the Bloods that were Bloods. I knew them already. So it wasn't like a few times it was questioned, you know, but this MVP, like, we standing on our ground at this point.
When I came into Mount Vernon, I already came in with a little bit, because I'm not, you know, I didn't go in there like extra. I was there because I had to be there. And so when I went in there, it was questionable about where I was from. Obviously, I'm not from around here, so the guys in this area didn't know me. And so once the MVP days came, I believe that it wasn't really no problem, because we wasn't really leaning, you know, we wasn't saying Crip. It was something new. So they was like, well, what's MVP? Most Valuable Pimp. Well, what's that? You know, we hip hop gangsters. You know, okay. And at the time, the hip hop gangster thing, Just Ice, the rapper from New York, you know, he was the only one saying the hip hop gangster. That's kind of where I picked up from that. You know, Just Ice,
kind
the
of
Ice
coined
Grill.
that phrase.
Yeah.
Once we heard that.
Yeah, the hip hop gang, because
That
nobody
kinda
wasn't really
fits
pushing.
us.
It's like, okay, yeah, we hip hop gangsters. We can go to a party. The homie LA Cool gonna rip you up on the mic, and at the time he was the dopest rapper at Mount Vernon, and probably for a young kid, the age he was, you know, he was really living it. So, you know, we had homies that can dance. We had, you know, so we could go to a party, we push that hip hop gangsters, and people don't really know how to react to that. They're like, oh, okay, well, that's something new.
Explain this, because I'm a little confused. Is the hip hop gangsters a separate group, or is it a subgroup of MVP?
Nope.
How does that
it's
work?
a genre.
It's a genre.
It's just like
It's
a genre.
what we are.
Just like
It's
how the
what we're
KODs
pushing.
was known as like the preppy gang. You know, they was known as the prep because they wore the creepers and the tapered dickies. We came out with our own genre. Instead of saying hustlers or Crips or Bloods.
And it wasn't that back then, it wasn't that we were specifically going for a certain goal. We want to have the best dancers. We want to have the best rappers. That's what LA Cool was to us. We wanted to have the best taggers. We wanted to have the best fighters. We wanted to have the best everything.
So was LA Cool an MVP?
He was.
Yeah.
He was.
Yeah, he was an MVP.
He even did our first hood tape.
Yeah, he was the MVP, but there again, it was the MVP, and to answer your question, it was Hip Hop Clan. Hip Hop Clan.
That was his.
It was, you know, him and his brother group. His brother, DJ True, was a DJ.
But once again, they're in the vein of hip hop gangster like us.
Right.
Hip Hop Clan, Hip Hop Gangster, MVP, Hip Hop Gangster.
Right, because gangster rap wasn't really a thing then.
But we was making it a thing.
You know.
So the whole E-Dub MVP thing starts between some hip hop stuff with LA Cool and Shannon.
Yep.
And then how does
Shout out to Twin.
how does that become this all-out beef?
Girls.
And I think a little bit of disrespect, because we've shown up to certain situations and battles, and then the girls came into it, and it was a beef brewing that probably didn't have no root to it, but it was just a kind of dislike, I think.
Then we got KDAY, where you can call in every morning. I don't know if you remember, Alonso, but you used to be able to call in the radio station and say whatever your set was and whatever your situation was. You feel me? They would play it. And every morning we had 30 people calling. 30 of my homies would be on the phone every morning calling, saying, yeah, this MVP, woo, 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 woo. had the E-dubs doing the same thing. Eventually, you know.
Yeah. It was friction.
What happens between the summers of 7th and 8th and 8th and 9th? Because the summers is when it's time to have fun, party, girls. What's going on in the summertime when school's out?
I can answer that.
But y'all on year-round school.
Yeah,
right?
so our summers are different.
Yeah.
And he was on a different track from me.
The thing with the summers, okay, so as we start to build the MVP thing at the schoolhouse, we also recruiting around here. That's when we signed, like, we had an older cat named Drag, and he used to drive a truck. So he was kind of our transportation. He had this big old truck. Back then you can ride in the bed. So we would G group and get in the bed. We signed rest in peace Dre, Big Snake, and so the streets, we was picking up a couple guys from each block. Menace lived on Roosevelt, you know what I mean? We had JB on Harvard, the other side of Harvard, we had Slick.
They lived on Oxford. They lived on Kingsley, all of, what's the name in them? Trey Shay and all of them, they live on Westmoreland.
Yeah, Westmoreland.
So we were selecting, and people were coming to us from all different blocks from around here to come and see what it's about, and if they like it, they get put on.
And they felt comfortable. So summers we'll be at Normandy Park playing basketball. We used to go to the Cripple School over here,
Washington.
off of Washington, because they had the short courts. We dunk on there. So summers was like that, and that's where, and then we would hit parties, like we would go to Fox Hill Mall.
That's when house parties was prevalent throughout the city. They wasn't getting shot up yet.
Yeah, we go to Fox Hill Mall on the weekends.
Yeah,
and hang out there, and that's where you start to create friction a little bit, because they like, well, who are these dudes? Oh, we MVPs,
right?
You know what I mean? And so that's what we would do. We was building every summer from the 8th grade really to when we took off to 9th grade year. And then he can speak about 10th grade year when we went to LA High. I moved away for a few months.
Y'all must hear, okay, the Bloods is not happy with all these Crips up here on Washington and Harvard, and little conflicts are starting to happen. And are you ever hanging out on that street?
No, because only time I ever went on Harvard, we had a couple of people that live in my family that live over there. Big Reese, he's original blood from around here. People on that block, we're cemented with them, Gerard and Lisa and Rick Rock and all of them. Like, we grew up around them every day on a constant basis. So there were people over there, but we didn't dibble and dabble, because at that point we had our own strongholds. You know what I'm saying?
Which was down on this side.
Which was down on this side, and then we started carving out places that were above Harvard, like Hobart, like Oxford, like Westmoreland, where we had 2 or 3 people that lived over there. So now we got a reason to come over there, to hang over there.
The only way we would really be on Harvard if you needed to go over there, because you can get a quick double up and flip your money.
Basically, it's only at that time. It's only one reason that you on Harvard: either you hustling or you buying.
Yeah, and moms will give you a little school money and $100 to go to swap meet.
Alonso, you remember?
Go over there.
Bus passes costed $40, bro. You could take that $40 and get a double up and be off and running by 12 o'clock.
So
12 o'clock that night, you be gone with a stack of money. Period. Harvard was like that.
Harvard was
I ain't never seen no shit like Harvard. Crips, Bloods, everybody.
You mentioned there used to be some Hoovers over there too.
Yeah.
Five Deuces.
Five Deuces. That's G now.
Yeah. Yeah, they had it sold up for me.
Sold up, bro.
But then at some point, the Bloods in the area are feeling a little disrespected. Like, wow, these dudes really think they can be over here making all this money in the shadow of our neighborhood. So what are some of the first things that happened that you remember?
Well, what started happening is it started being a lot of shootings in the area. You know what I mean? And I believe that for sure Dre's shooting being a mistaken identity from the gate, or so said. I believe that the shootings that just were happening in the area, there were people riding around here just shooting, period, because they just thought everybody around here was a Crip or this or a Blood or whatever. People were just riding around, you know what I mean? At that time, drive-by shootings were at an all-time high. You really couldn't go too far from your door walking around up Washington or down Washington without having some type of interaction with somebody.
But I remember no one got killed for a while.
For a long time.
Yeah,
for a long time.
It was just shooting up cars. So you remember all these back and forth shootings?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I remember too.
Absolutely. And then, of course, it was gonna happen eventually. It happened to us.
Now, Dre being an MVP, you said he was just probably up there to make a couple bucks.
He was in the
leave?
car. He wasn't on Harvard. He was on Washington in front of the burger factory where you and Skip were standing.
Okay.
He was right there. He wasn't on Harvard. But it was so much shit going on all around here because of Harvard that it was going to bleed over eventually.
Yeah,
it could have bled over.
vicinity.
It could have bled over for us because we were in the vicinity. You know what I mean? Somebody paged me. I answered the phone call. Somebody got shot. Where? Burger factory. I take off. I get to going. I take off. I run. By the time I get there, like, it's over. It's blood. The ambulance is coming. I got 2 of my cats in the car dragging and freaking out. It's just a sad situation. And he was a young lion. See, the difference in him getting killed and anybody else getting killed, well, he was a young lion. This was a kid that looked like a grown man that would fight grown men.
Yeah, he looked like grown.
He looked like a full beard, like a grown man at 16, 15, 14. Like he was a young lion for us and for what we represented.
Well, how'd you feel? You weren't in LA when it happened?
Nah, I was OT, but you know, I came back a couple months. I was almost on my way back for the funeral, but my mom probably knew that it wasn't a good idea to come for whatever reason. So I came back months later, and everybody was still subtle, you know, because it did hit home. And you know, as soon as I touched down, I immediately get with the Cuddies. And then we started to rejuvenate again. That's when we turned it on because I came back, I got a job, got the first whip from the hood, you know, and that was the whip that drove us to school 10th grade year. And I was like, you know, we finna get this shit cracking again. And so I had the first whip at 15 years old, 16, I think I just turned 16. Went and got my whip, 79 Imparter for, you know, that was known as an MVP car. And then that's when the year of 11th grade year was the year of the rebuild.
Now, was the orange drive clique already formed yet?
Part of the rebuild.
That was part of the rebuild.
Part of the rebuild, yep.
Did you guys know that the Bloods did it immediately, or did it take some time? Because the guy got arrested and ended up going to YA, and then he ended up going to prison after he turned 25. But when did you guys realize, because you're living in the neighborhood where the guys are from that killed your friends?
Well, it wasn't brought to us like that. When it first got spoke to us, if I'm correct, the 6 Deuce Brims were implicated the first time it was spoke to us.
Yeah.
At the funeral, everybody looked so fucking confused that I knew something was wrong. And I started buying guns. What you did was create a monster who created monsters. At that point, for me.
And he had 2, like his aunt was Stefan, rest in peace, Big Steph. That was his woman. So he had people that was connected to the other side, you know what I mean? You know, so, you know, they family, he had people in his family that knew what it was and they handled it a certain way. Mind you, we're still kids, like, you know what I mean? So we're like, wow, you know, we did know it was a mistaken identity. We did know that off the back because we wasn't running around attracting that type of attention. And the way that they did it, it was almost like, you know, they ran up to the car and he was a target for whatever reason, for no reason. But it hit home.
But wouldn't you say at that point, the Bloods were coming up there to shoot anybody who wasn't a Blood that was on that block?
We wasn't on that block. That's key factor. We wasn't on that block.
Yeah.
And we never hung on that block.
No, we never hung on that block.
You understand? Not one day of the set did we ever. We had people that lived on the block. They jumped the fence to come this way.
Yeah, you can come through the back.
You feel me?
From my building.
My people didn't hang on that block because that was death for anybody. You
Yeah,
feel
it was
me?
just too much.
It's too much on that block.
Police, I mean, even if you was walking down that block, the police can pull up on you at any time. And at that time, they was like planting sacks on niggas.
So did you know that Dre was in that area?
He lives on Hobart.
Hobart.
Well, actually, he lives on Harvard, but on the other side.
Yeah, he lived
the
on
people
Harvard.
in Venice side.
Him and
so
Slick.
he lives on Harvard.
Okay, so he was just in his area.
He was just in his area. Going
This
to get
was his
something to
area,
eat.
you know.
This is his area.
We
He's down the street. He's literally 300 feet from his house. Dre used to claim Harlem before he came to us. See, a lot of it come back to your past. See, and we have to put that on the table. I remember meeting Dre, and he wasn't from the set. He was from Harlem.
They was just trying to, him and Snake, you know, they was like
getting
drifting
their
that way.
feet wet in that when we met them. You know what I mean?
But
Shout
then
out
we ended up snatching them, you know, because this was
something
new and it was playered, and it was getting respect. Like once we got to high school, people started like, oh, okay, you know, they got numbers and they about it because now we got certain homies that's going to jail.
Okay, so let's talk about the rebuild. So I guess this is late 88, early 89 after Dre's passing, and you guys start another clique of MVP. How does that come about?
Well, we had a lot of folks that lived just west of La Brea on Orange Drive. And it was the same type of situation. We had one street that we hung on that nobody really hung on. And then the people that came from around there came from surrounding blocks.
Yeah. And then we had the homie OG Aki that lived in that building right there when I moved. He's one of the original MVP, one of the co-founders. His mom bought a house on Sycamore.
On Sycamore, right down the street.
So, you know, we still had, because you got to remember, Mount Vernon, you know, you got the people from over on the Midtown, you know, schoolyards and that way that went to Mount Vernon. Then you had this side of the, you know, went to Mount Vernon. So at that time and then that's LA High as well, because it's off Olympic. So we share that, you know, those two schools. Right. So a lot of the homies, when he moved over there, some of the homies started going over there, kicking it with him. And then, like he said, we started signing a lot of people that was on that area. So that's how the Orange Drive came out, because we wanted
another melting pot of people that we got from Orange Drive came from World on Wheels. We've been going skating since the beginning, since the skating rink on Washington. You know what I mean? Since babies. So
would you say OG Aki's mom moving over there was a part of the formation of the Orange Drive?
Yeah, because I say yeah, because he was a G and was able to create that. We wasn't just leaving a bunch of newbies to represent what we had our blueprint.
We actually had a extension of us over there that lived over there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
So you guys were the new MVP dudes from Orange Drive lived in that area?
In that area. Okay. Most of them, I would say most of them.
And would you say over the next year or two, that became more known as MVP than the original area on LaSalle?
No, because there were places in the middle that we hung that we didn't claim a set of, like Crenshaw and Washington. For a long time, Crenshaw and Washington used to be our corner.
Right.
And anybody that came there or was around in that time, they knew it was our corner because it's 50 guys standing outside. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. At that time, now we're talking about 89, 90. Now we having other formations of situations that are like ours. KWS, MBT. This is when all of those things are now forming and we're bumping into them and we're being known that there are other people who kind of strike the same vein as us. They want to be what they are, individual, but they don't want to claim Crip or blood.
The Troubles eventually became Gangster Crips.
Right.
Wow.
And
hung out with
them.
But the difference in us and them is they hung out with the neighborhoods in Leimert Park.
Yeah.
Remember, it's Leimert Park trouble.
So
that's
but
then somebody moved over to Halldale.
Absolutely.
In 51st.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then
shout out to Icebone and the Trubs. Them is my guys.
Okay, so
my
you
nephew
remember
was from
when
there.
Trouble started at Leimert Park?
I remember.
Okay.
I remember. A lot of the Troubles came skating.
Yeah.
They were hundreds, by the hundreds. They were there 100 deep.
They started out as a Tagger gang.
Yeah. They were doing something different, but there's no way if you were in the city and you were on foot, on RTD, walking, wherever, you bumped into some MBT somewhere in the city.
And let everyone know what RTD is, because this is being black.
RTD, okay. You guys ride MTA, we rode RTD. RTD is the same thing as y'all got, but way rougher, no cameras. They could do what they want to you, and there's nothing nobody could do about it. The driver keep driving, period.
Rough, tough, and dirty.
Rapid Transit District.
It did, Rapid Transit District.
A lot of people threw their own little acronym.
Rough, tough, and dirty.
Robert T. Davis.
Robert T. Davis.
Yeah.
Rough, tough, and dangerous.
I want to elaborate too on the fact that, on the question you asked about, you know, the Orange Drives being, so when the Orange Drive started, we didn't really push like LaSalle Ave, Orange Drive. We just pushed the MVP logo. You know what I mean? It's just, people just knew that you could find us over there.
But you know what?
Find us over here.
They wanted that. No, let's keep it 100. Them cats from over there, Big Fine and them, they wanted that.
Oh yeah,
they wanted it.
But that's not how it was pushed.
We wasn't pushing it, but the cats that were living over there, they started saying it. Because they started saying it to us. Mm-hmm. We was like, nigga, you can't say that to me, nigga. I'm your...
So when do you guys put the G on it? That's the first change from y'all name. It's MVP for all of junior high.
Well, most of it, because the G came like maybe after the 9th grade summer.
Okay.
We was MVPGs when we went to LA High. We was already that summer when I came back and we started rebuilding.
The rebuild
in the hood.
was the G.
Yeah, the rebuild was the G. You know, because we still was pushing the hip hop gangster. So that gangster was always right there. You know what I mean? And the G was there. That movement with the Orange Drive and all that, nothing really never happened without original MVP, which most of the OGs come from LaSalle. You know, it's a couple new recruits too that was signing on LaSalle too, but most of the movements and everything that we was doing was one of us, you know, leading the brigade,
right?
You know,
but at the end of the day, shout out to the Orange Drives and the 23rds because they were people who came along later that represented the same brand with the same fervor as us.
Yeah, definitely. It was only one way. Like we wasn't doing no double agent.
Yeah,
you know?
like see, that's a thing that I saw in the interview that you know you from this, but you from that too. If you was from MVP, you was from MVP. Period.
Tell me if I'm right or wrong. Did you drop Marvin completely?
Period.
Yeah,
there were times. There were times that we were pressed because of it.
Because
by the schoolyards in Orange Drive.
Well, you know, with the Marvins,
we were pressed.
I claimed it because I had to lead this the way I wanted people to represent. Yeah. But as far as the Marvins concerned, that's family. Because I still have my cousin Crazy D. That so I was still linked up to the Marvins as far as family is concerned, but they knew about MVP. They knew. It wasn't like they looked at me and was like, "Oh, you switch hoods," because they knew my position from MVP. So it was like family, you know. Which the HBCs ended up forming a group in Marvin Hood, which we ended up being like, you know, family too, like going way back. So it was always love because we the West LA cars. So it shouldn't be no friction between. Really, you know, the cars, everybody that's represented in the car, you know, even though we pushed the gangster car too, but, you know, everybody knew that we mostly represented the West LA, you know.
Now, back to the hip hop gangster, which is a genre that you guys was pushing. Were you able to get any other crews that formed to fall up under that genre too, that embraced it?
Not really, because we're not assimilators. You understand? So it was kind of our thing, and it wasn't really. You know what I mean? It wasn't really a thing for us to put that moniker on somebody else. That's what we doing. Like, you know what I mean? It wasn't really a thing to where we would push it to the point where we would say, yeah, y'all want to be this too? Nuh-uh. It's more like, y'all should be from the set. Like, you know what I mean?
But we had, I'm gonna keep it real. Let's keep it real. We had more haters than we did people who really wanted to ride with us. And I don't know if that was their way of getting attention or known, but we was the one that had the beef with the Troubles at one point in time. GJUs, E-Dubs, Boots, all these little gangs, you know, that was forming at the time. For whatever reason, you know, worldwide,
I know
by
why.
yourself.
Girls.
And it
I know
was because
why.
of females.
So, girls.
Okay. After high school is the early, I guess after 12th grade, it's been a year, I guess, since Dre got killed, and the rebuilding is, you guys are actually
It's been a couple years.
We're growing.
It was a couple years. Like,
we're growing.
Yeah.
We're having a great growth spurt.
And I remember this is like, let's say 89, 90, if someone mentioned MVPs, automatically as an outsider, you thought of them as on Orange Drive. It seemed like the Orange Drive thing, they were popping.
That's what was popping.
Yeah, because we pushed the West LA, so we was over there because we was able to create, because like we said, being over here was so hot from Harvard, it was only so much we can do here because the heat was gonna come, you know. So,
but at the end of the day, this was a staple by then.
Yeah,
we were firmly planted here.
Right here, firmly.
Firmly. And to all comers, whoever wanted to come, by then we were strong enough to withstand whatever.
Yeah, and we spent a lot of time here. Like, you know, certain homies, but
like,
you know,
we live over here. So of course we're gonna spend most of our time over here. But when we went over there, we didn't have a problem. You know, there was the regular rambunctious play of the West Boulevards and the schoolyards and the bumping of the heads and stuff like that, and they squab, whatever. But it never was a situation where they wanted to try to come through on Orange Drive.
Right, never. And if anything ever happened, it had to be, the phone call had to be put in here. Even though that was Orange Drive, we still called the shots over there.
Exactly.
We called the shots over there, here, 23rd, it don't matter. You know, when anything that has to do with MVPGC, you know, it has to run through a general. So yeah, Orange Drive was doing their thing over there, but nothing could be really done, unless it was ran by us.
So who's the first MVPG that was from that neighborhood that eventually became the top of this second generation?
I would say like Fine and Edit. Because see, Fine and Edit,
Shout out to Big Fun.
it's Big Fine and Edit, Big Edit,
Jerry.
and you actually talked to Edit. He the one that you talked to first, and he gave me your number. Okay, those was the top one because they actually went to Mount Vernon with us.
Big Spud, rest in peace.
Yeah, Big Spud.
Yeah.
You know, rest in peace.
Yeah, we got
They
some
went to
gems.
Mount Vernon with us, so they was one of the ones that came out of that junior high. So anybody that came out of that junior high, even though they might have not started claiming the hood to like that 9th grade year of the, or 10th grade year, summer of the 10th grade, somewhere around there, they still came out of the original schoolhouse. You know, so they was, I would say, Fine and Edit and Spud.
Yeah.
You know, was the original
Orange
Orange Drive.
Big shout out to Big Clean.
Yeah. Big shout out to Big Clean, Nephew
Big
Clean.
Tip. Yeah.
You know, but those was the two guys that originally came out of Mount Vernon, so they was considered like the G's.
Okay, so then now when we get into the early 90s, a couple of you guys end up going to prison. Like, who's the first MVP to actually hit a prison yard?
Menace probably.
Big Menace, Low.
Big Menace is the godfather. He's the oldest member of the set. So he was the first one to hit the pen. He went to the pen when he wasn't even from the set, before we even got him. He already had
Or at least
penitentiary
doing time, you know, doing like county time, which was rough, you know. But yeah, he's the first
he's
one.
older. He's 5 years, 6 years older than us.
How is he so much older than y'all? And
I don't know about
He came-
5 or 6 years
Remember,
old,
him
maybe.
and Top Dollar came from West Side Pimps, and that was a different
Yeah,
thing.
I
They
don't know
were
about
older
5 or
guys.
6. He may be about 3 or 4. You know what I mean?
And
Top
even-
Dollar our age,
Right.
like, you know, because he went to Mount Vernon with us.
But we had older people from the set.
Yeah, we did.
You know what I mean?
At that time, Menace was...
rest in peace, Popeye. Once again, this is somebody who's way older than us.
yeah.
are these guys that were part of West Side Pimps and you all brought them in?
No,
Or
they were from different factions. I spoke on
yeah.
Menace and Top Dollar. They were from West Side Pimps. They were the only two, I believe. Popeye came to us from the Manhattan Mob, but once again, he was way older than us. He had way more experience in everything, life period.
Yeah, he came from Manhattan.
Let's talk a little bit about Manhattan Mob and Gramercy Street, because geographically, are they the two closest non-blood, non-Crip groups to y'all?
Me growing up on 1934
I would say
Southwestern,
so.
I would say so.
Okay.
I would say so.
Because for whatever reason, the Gramercy Streets and the Manhattan Mobs, one block over,
Neighbors.
did not get along.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I don't remember any killing between them, but there was a few shootings.
Absolutely.
And this was during y'all day too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what was y'all hearing about Gramercy Street hustle?
Well, first of all, let me say, shout out to MK from Gramercy.
The
Well,
Cuddy.
my mama lived on Cimarron, right around the corner from Kissy house. He was one of my first friends. Kissy, I always knew about Gramercy, the forming of it and everything, because it came from Babe and Kissy and them. So I already heard about them, and we knew everything about them, and they knew everything about us. They saw the forming of us. We saw the forming of them. We knew the Manhattan Mobs. They weren't foreign to us either. You know what I mean? We saw the beef, the feuds. We remember the football games, because that's what it really starts off as, like sports beef. This block playing this block in football.
Was it football games at that school on Gramercy?
Sometimes it was, yeah. Whitney, sometimes it was at Whitney High, in back of 24. They were in different places, but sometimes they were street games.
Yeah, and so for me, my first introduction to Manhattan, we used to walk home at times. You know, Big Aki, me, when he kind of left Mount Vernon a little early because he got kicked out for fighting, and he went to Berendo. So you know, but you know, we still meet after school, whatever, because he lived here. But we would walk home and we would pass like Popeye and some of the Manhattan guys that would be kicking it off of Washington,
Joe.
and they would always like show us love,
Yeah.
like, man, you little niggas is fly, man. You know, where y'all from? And we from MP. What's that? Most Valuable Pimp. And people would always that name would blow people away because they'd be like, Pimps. Oh, okay, yeah, I see. You know what I mean? So that was my first introduction. It was always a welcoming thing. And then with the Gramercies, you know, I went to Mount Vernon with Kissy. MK, you know, so, and he was connected to the Cuddy, Woody, which Woody used to, you know, claim neighborhood hustler. He's from neighborhood hustler, but he ran with the Gramercies
All the time.
you know, and so, and Woody would kick it with our homie Art Rich that lived on there because they was doing their rapping thing.
Rap thing.
So you know, I knew Kissy, and so that's family. And then later on, when we got on Crenshaw and Washington, we started to, you know, spend a lot of time with the Gramercies because they would pull up on us over there and domino games and card games and gamble
They would go to our
dice
functions.
games.
They would come to our functions. We would go to their functions.
Yeah.
What do you guys know about why the Gramercies and Manhattans hated each other so much? Being
What-
that they're in the same area.
Because we knew who they were, it wasn't our business.
Yeah, we didn't like.
We didn't never
know.
delve in that line.
That was actually a little before my time because remember I came over here 7th grade, so
Right.
they was already feuding.
It was that feud.
You know what I mean?
That feud was just a feud, and it was
Yeah.
nothing you could say or do about it. It's like any other set or place that don't get along with another set or place.
I remember, I think a Manhattan mob got shot in the leg by a Gramercy. And I was like, this is funny to see y'all do drive-bys 1 block away and then come back, you know, 1 block away.
Yeah, I remember a kid getting shot. Kissy, was it his nephew or his cousin? Yeah,
nephew,
got shot.
I believe it's his nephew.
Yeah, he didn't die. I don't believe he died, but he got shot. You know, in Manhattan, supposedly, allegedly. You know, I don't know.
I hope that that somewhere along the lines you get a chance to interview them.
Yeah.
MK, huh?
Yeah.
Would you consider him the founder of Gramercy Street Hustler?
I would say he's not the founder. He's one of the founding members.
Yeah, he was born in almost. You know, I mean,
he's a set pusher.
Yeah.
And I think what the Gramercy Street Hustlers had going for them that, I guess some other of you groups did that too, but their street was a long street from Adams to Venice. They pretty much held down, but it was also a dope block where it was it
was like Harvard.
It was like Harvard, but I think it was more money than Harvard.
Probably so.
Because it was longer and it would be more people on Gramercy.
Lined up.
It'll be like 10 people out there and
Lined
everyone's making money.
Lined up.
Yeah. Dope
And
boy days.
here's the cold part about it, man. I lived on 1934. I remember when Marvin Gaye got killed. Right on that street. I watched them wheel the body out the house.
I remember that too, actually.
My aunties all fell on the ground. Like, I remember that day like it was nothing, like it just happened.
Marvin Gaye's house is actually on Gramercy.
And when we lived on 1934 Southwestern, when you open our door, if you just walk straight down the street, you're gonna walk into Marvin Gaye's house.
Shout out to the homegirl Coco from Gramercy.
Coco from Gramercy, absolutely. Babe, Angel, absolutely.
You guys were friends with both sides, Manhattan Mob,
Absolutely.
Gramercy,
Just by geographically.
but then eventually Popeye, who's a Manhattan Mob, becomes an MVP.
This is later though.
This is later. You know,
Past the
Gramercy,
90s.
you know, kind of kept their shine, and Manhattan's kind of faded out a little bit. You know, I don't know why or who or what. But,
I think it was sheer numbers. I think there were
the
just
numbers
more
kind of got,
Gramercies
And they had a small block because of the
plaza,
supermarket.
the
right
plaza,
there. So
yeah.
Manhattan is only from
Boom, boom.
18th to Washington
Yeah.
that they held down.
Right.
And it doesn't go past Washington right
No.
there. It doesn't go past 18th.
No.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think eventually that kind of happened. And then, you know, so much the love that we had for Popeye and the love that he had for us, you know what I mean? May God rest his soul.
Yeah.
You know, it was just like, I'm fucking with y'all now. You know what I mean? And he did that 100% full speed, you know.
Until his untimely demise.
When do you guys start hanging out at Washington and Crenshaw? Because then that becomes a really like little strong point for the MVPs for a while.
Man, it was them two ladies that lived over there. Elaine and
And
whoever.
I don't know her buddy.
Older woman, right?
Yeah, man, these cats, man.
So this is what happened. The homie Gimmick and the homie Monday lived on Crenshaw. They actually lived on Crenshaw. Monday somehow met Elaine, you know, and he did his thing with her and got her attention. And then, you know, once Monday got Elaine's attention, he opened up the door for other people to come. And at that time, you know, it was a lot of juvenile delinquents, I would say. People was kind of like, you know, some of the homies was running away from home or leaving home. They was getting a little leeway, so they would go over there because you can hang over there. She wasn't tripping. And that's kind of how we developed. And then we was rebuilding too. We was still recruiting at that time.
She just lived by herself?
It was her, she had a
another
homegirl,
girl.
and she had a daughter, you know, but I mean, I think it ended up making the paper, if I'm not mistaken, that she had a lot of young juveniles hanging out because the neighbors was complaining, and you know, we'd be out there sometimes 30, 40 deep.
And how old was Elaine?
She was definitely about, at
40.
that time,
I would say 40.
late 30s, early 40s.
Is that right?
Late 30s,
Yeah.
yeah, she was old. She was older at that time, you know, because these guys was barely hitting. At this time, we was like either still in high school or some people was graduating, you know. So we was like, what, 18, 17,
17,
18, you know. So that's how we ended up developing that corner. And then people started to know because they'd be like, oh, that's some MVPs over there, you know. But like I said, we didn't really, you know, when we hung out, we didn't really cause ruckus. Like, we didn't shit where we eat, you know. We wasn't hanging out at Elaine and going down robbing the mobile right down the street and coming back there bringing the heat. So
Worst we gonna do is smoke some weed and shoot dice.
yeah, and play
Period.
card dominoes
Play
or
cards,
hustle.
dominoes,
But we didn't cause ruckus. So we got a lot of length out of wherever, you know, we was hanging at, you know, because people didn't really trip, you know. But yeah, that's how we started hanging out on the Shaw. This is like 91.
Yeah, 91.
It spanned for maybe a good couple years, you know. I'm not sure.
I never
you know,
hung on
like-
Crenshaw, Washington, not one time. I knew better. They was stupid.
Yeah. It was
Stupid.
crazy out there. I mean, you know, just out front.
I'm not finna be out there just hanging. No. No.
Yeah.
Okay, so then at some point you guys have a little conflict with another crew, the By Yourselves. They were hustlers at the time.
Right.
How did y'all cross paths with the By Yourselves?
Girls, like he said.
Girls.
One of the homies, Big
Girls.
S Love. You know, Big S Love was dating a chick that dealt with one of those, and then some kind of words was exchanged. Then they went to JB. And so when we, you know, and so we went up there, you know, because it was getting kind of funky.
We was famous for going up to your school.
Right.
If you get into a beef with us, we gonna come to your school. If you go on the radio on K-Day in the morning and say blah blah blah, we gonna come up to Dorsey.
Yeah.
We gonna come and we gonna jump the
address that.
fence. We gonna come address you at your school, at your house, wherever we can address you, we will come. And normally with kids our age, it's gonna be school.
Yeah.
So that's how that started.
We went up to JB.
We went up to JB.
And, you know, and then from there, it was just kind of a back and forth thing.
Now, they were hustlers, but then they turned
Hustler Crip.
at some point. Do y'all remember that?
I remember the transition a little bit, you know, but at the time it didn't surprise me because, like I said, I come from the West End. So a lot of those dudes was kicking it with the Playboys, the Marvins anyway.
Heavily
So, you
influenced by the Playboys and the Martins.
Yeah, and the Mansfields.
So it wasn't a
So,
surprise at all.
You know, I mean, it was just kind of one of them things where, okay, they adjusted.
So by the time we get to the early 90s, both y'all end up going to prison. Who goes first?
Me.
And did you think this was going to happen to you, or you kind of knew?
The judge already told me before I went, many times that I went to jail, that I was gonna go to prison.
If he saw you again?
If he saw me again. I was already on joint suspended parole. They basically set you up in a noose, and it's a loose noose, and you get loose and
Yeah, so let's understand what joint suspended is. Joint suspended is, I'm gonna let you out on this case, but if you mess up just one little time, I'm giving you a lot of time.
Right. No, what it is I'm gonna give you a two piece. You get the time that you get for the case, and then you get extra time for breaking your joint suspended. That's gonna be about 3 years, depending on if they give you joint suspended 1, 2, 3, 4 years.
Now it could be a blessing and a curse, because if you're at
if
that
you
point
do
in your
good,
life, I ain't messing up no more.
you straight.
Forget about it.
You going to prison.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 19, I was gone. Right after the riots, I was gone. Probably saved my life though.
Yeah.
How much time did you do?
5 years, 8 months on an 8-year sentence. And I went to level 2, level 3, level 4. Yeah. I went to jail for shooting at the police. So, you know, everywhere you go, they can read your jacket. And so I had problems everywhere I went. When you that young and you got that much time in front of you, you don't really care. Like,
So
it's
what was
whatever.
your final conviction? What were you convicted of? Did
I
they
was
drop you
convicted.
down to something?
Of course, you know, when
Yeah.
you plead, they always drop. I got arrested. My bail was, I had $1 million bail. I was on $1 million roll. I was attempted murder on a police officer. Never forget their names because I saw them on Cops while I was on jail. Wittenhauer and Damon Hogan.
Now, was there a lot of extras that they put on the case against you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They made themselves the victim. They made themselves the victim. They wasn't the victim.
Yeah,
You
so
want to speak a little bit about that?
Not really.
Okay.
It's in my past. We're talking about something that happened 25 years, 30 years ago.
Does it still impact you today? Because the felony is always going to stay with you, but
Of course.
because it was police related. You know.
Come on, bro. I don't gotta tell you. You already know these things. Like you've did enough of these interviews to know how shit goes sometimes. So what you have to do is just motivate yourself in areas where that you can do for you. You don't have to wait for anybody. You know what I mean? You do your own business. You own your own things. You handle your business like a man that doesn't want any help from anybody. When you go to prison, you go to county jail for a long time before you even get your time. In the county jail, it's much worse than any prison because the influx of people going in and out and constantly some bullshit, constantly the set thing, constantly the black Mexican white thing. It's just constant.
So let me say this. Plus, also, we had homies at that time going to juvenile hall too. So you know that's like the first beginning. You know, a lot of dudes that's going in and out of juvenile hall, they end up in the county, then eventually in prison. So that's kind of where you get known if you starting to do young time. YA, juvenile hall, and then obviously county jail, then prison. So we was already, it might have been foreign to some people that might have been from Long Beach or outside the area.
Outside the area, but if you're from the city.
If you from the city, you
But
kind of
here's
heard
the
of
deal.
it.
But here's the deal. If you're in the county jail, they're gonna move you 1,000,000 times. You're gonna bump into 100 people. People already know who you are when you hit the prison yard. People knew who I was and knew where I was from when I got there.
Did you have to explain MVP to the prison counselor?
I never would.
No?
I never would.
Okay.
I never would.
Because they want to know that stuff.
Yeah,
Shut up.
but
Like,
they,
shut up.
they,
I don't. As long as you don't have no big old tat that say it,
Yeah.
you can think whatever.
But a couple of homies, I'm sure, hit the
Blasted,
had
of
the
course.
MVP
Yeah,
on.
everywhere.
yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And I got the NVs on my shoulders, and
Yeah, a lot
and
of
I was
homies
on the
did.
gang. I was on the gang file early because of a jailhouse robbery, a schoolhouse robbery that I was
School.
that I was implicated in. That they allegedly, but I didn't do. I beat the case, but the guy picked me out the yearbook. It wasn't me, but he knew it was one of the homies, so I guess he must have thrown me under there. But so that already went on my juvenile jacket. I went to juvenile hall for a couple days, a little while, and then I got out. But I didn't really start going into the jail system until I was 18, and then I went to the pen when I was like 22. So by then it was already known. We got homies in jail doing life right now. Still.
Right now, still.
Now, both you guys did prison time that overlapped with each other, but never crossed paths, huh?
No. When I got out of jail, he had just went to jail, I believe. Because he was.
Yeah.
When I got out, he wasn't home. Correct?
Yeah, but I did it. See how I did a year in the county fighting my case. Then I went to trial like 11 and a half months in.
Right.
Then I went to Delano. So I wouldn't have really ran into him because even though we was in jail at the same time,
I was in prison.
He was already in prison, and I was going
I was on the
through
level
trial.
4 yard by that time.
Yeah, so by the time I went to trial, caught my case, I was already down like a year. Then I went to Delano, where you in reception for three months. So by the time I hit the yard,
I went through that reception too.
he was done. Yeah.
So did you guys forge any meaningful relationships with people that you met in prison?
With me specifically, I forged a lot of relationships with people because for a while, I only had to do technically 4 years, but I ended up doing 5 years, 8 months.
Back then it was 50%.
It was 50%.
Yeah.
So this is before 3 strikes and all of that. So I basically could have did 4 years and came home, but we both know that was not going to happen. That just didn't never play out.
So you got a lot of write-ups, and it added a couple more years to the 4 you would have got out.
Pretty
on.
much.
Because you got 8 years with 50%.
Pretty much.
Back then. Now it's 85%.
Right. So you already at that much time.
So you actually did about 85%.
I did. I did. But it had to be done like that.
Yeah, and I did as well. Because for one, it took a long time for me to get my case because we had to go to trial and everything. But no, I really, I met a couple, cats that, that showed a lot of love. That was from the West LA car. Ben knows from Playboy Gangsters. That's my nigga. And but for me, it was the lesson that I was taking, and I was there to do one thing, and that was time. I wasn't there to bond with nobody or nothing.
The relationships came to me in there on a different note because I was known, after a while, I was known as a troublemaker. I had went from level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3 to level 4. So by the time I got there, I had so many points, I had so many write-ups, I had been in every hole of every prison that I went to. I put every yard down that I ever was on. You know what I mean? I just was having a problem. Either it was with the police or it was with, sometimes you have to conform to stuff, and I'm not really a conformist. And I would rather fight than conform sometime.
Now, when both of you guys went to prison, was there a particular car that you guys kicked it with because of the association that MVP had?
I learned from going from so many different places and having so many different issues with different people at different times for different reasons that by the time I got to a level 4 prison, I had some brothers pull me to the side. Some real brothers that know my file and know people that know me and everything. Cousin Kerry, shout out to Cousin Kerry from 60s, Banker T. These brothers is Muslim. They live in this next cell next to me. When I hit the yard, they came to me. Look, bro, we understand, that you rough, tough and all that, but here we trying to teach lessons, and we want brothers to learn while they're here. We don't want you to just be here dumb. And then you leave here with no understanding and turn around and come back. Hurt my heart to see Cousin Kerry get shot in the back when Nip got killed. It was a double knife, because I know Nip real good. Shout out to Black Sam. And Cousin Kerry, he raised me in that place. He showed me. He brought literature to my door. Here, brother, I want you to read this book. It was people bringing me knives to protect myself, and this brother's bringing me books.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And for me, I'm a graduate to who I know and what I know. But yeah, some of the homies that's doing stop down time, like 15, 20 years, we run with the gangster car,
Yeah.
But we also have the option, obviously, to fuck with the West LA car because we part of that West LA. So,
yeah, and
and it's a trait thing.
And when
you know what I mean?
when you from your area, you're gonna bump into your people in there because they in there. Trust me. Shout out to Trey Ball from Marvin, one of my cats, Lefty from Mansfield. These is cats that was teaching lessons. I was learning. They was telling me. And the funny thing about it is a lot of the cats that I was on the yard with, the difference in our time and the ramifications of it, the cats I was on the yard with, they never was supposed to get out of jail. They had life. Now some of them is here on the streets.
Okay, so now both of you guys are in prison, but MVP is still going on. And then at some point they put the GC.
Yeah.
And does that happen while y'all in prison?
No, I was on the streets.
I'm in prison.
Okay.
He's on the streets.
Okay, so let's talk about how it went from MVPG to now we Gangster Crips.
So we was already, like we said, on that West LA car and kind of, we had connections with the Mansfield, rest in peace, Baby Looney.
Connections with the Marvin,
with the Marvins,
rest in peace, Crazy D.
And then we started signing, like most of the people we was leaning towards Crips anyway. Now some guys that came to the hood might have came out of a blood hood or a blood influence background, but when they got there, they know we was swaying that way anyway. So some of the, that generation, they came together, it was ran by me. They asked, like, hey, we thinking about it. And I just told them, look, I was already a Crip in my heart anyway, out of the Marvins, like you say, that's family, they raised me. So that background is always gonna be part of who I was. So it really didn't matter to me. I was already stomped down with whatever. I just wanted to make sure that the turf was gonna be able to handle that because, once you do that, now you throw yourself in a pocket to where now you got beef with all bloods. Whereas before you could say MVPG and they might say, okay, whatever. But so that's kind of how it went,
Was there anyone that was against it? Or
I believe so.
I didn't like it at first.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. First of all, because you made the call without calling me. I didn't get no knowledge of this. Number one. That's the number one problem I had. The second problem I had is, do you understand that we have people that are in the ground right now that stopped cripping to come bang with us?
Yeah.
We shitting on them if we do this. This is my mindset. I still don't, it is what it is, but I don't, because of those people.
Yeah,
because of
the early foundation of MVP was we not Crip, we not blood.
Right.
And now
this is what we doing.
They just threw,
like,
threw us in
man,
the pot.
You seem more against it than you were.
I don't believe in assimilation. I'm gonna say that again.
No, for me,
I don't believe in that, bro. I don't. I do it, but I don't believe in it.
For me, at the end of the day, it was gonna be majority rule anyway. You know what I'm saying?
That's
Because
true.
for me, it's like this. I'm not here to, this hood wasn't when I was one of the original ones with him that came over here and influenced it. I had more influence than him because I was at Mount Vernon longer. So it was things that I was showing him that I learned and things that he was showing me. But at the same time, we was based on our own identity, which was the hip hop gangster. That's why we chose that genre. Now, you threw us in the bucket with all these other gangs, and now it's really the same thing. But for me, at this point in time, I'm out of high school, and I'm more about the grind. Like, I can't come down, at this time after the riots and he went to prison, I was only really in LA for like the weekends because I moved to, me and my girl at the time, my ex-wife, we moved to Palmdale. I was trying to, like the military, I'm trying to establish ground in every city, you know? So I move out there, and now the homies is running it, and whatever G homies at the time was around, I mean, I don't know what was being taught. I was coming down and dealing because now we got all these, it's like the gremlins, you got the one gremlin that they made, and then they
all these other
and then
gremlins.
they feed the gremlin after hours, and then all of a sudden you get all these other ones that's going against what the original gremlin was supposed to be. So now we starting to separate ourselves from certain people from the hood because certain people ain't moving the way we move, and maybe they not a great look, or maybe they can't be trusted. So the squad that I was dealing with, we was on the same page. I was fucking with my nigga in prison. I would take his girl at the time,
pick her up, take her, bring
making
me,
sure
come
his
see
books
me.
was right, you know.
Absolutely.
But at the
if
end
I
of the day,
needed anything.
I'm establishing something in Palmdale because it wasn't really a big dope scene out there. So I move out there to get work, you know, to do work. And I'm coming back to the city on the weekends, you know, I'm low riding. And at the end of the day, you know, the homies, you know, the majority, they come to me. They did run it by me. But at the end of the day, it was like, okay, y'all, you know, I'm not here to babysit y'all. Just understand that y'all gonna be stand up under me.
And then keep it clear, not to cut you off, bro, but keep it clear. That ain't my responsibility anyway. That was never my position in the hood. In the hood, I am the disciplinarian. I am the person that's gonna get you ready for the shit you're gonna have to go through if you're gonna claim this.
Right.
You understand? I'm the person that anybody from the hood will tell you is the hardest on them, was the hardest on them from the beginning.
Right.
So who would you say was the main one that came up with the idea to put the Crip on it? Like, if you were gonna put like one or two people,
you know what? I really couldn't say because
I think it was a general consensus.
I think it was a general because we was already saying cuz.
We was already saying cuz. It just
know?
And then here's another angle you got to look at. Our worst problem at the time was E-Dub. They were riding on that side of the fence. Most of them went that way to the red side. Now we up into the years. Now we got the 25th Streets coming. You feel me? Now Todd, shout out to DJ. Them guys is coming like at the same time. When we going to see the E-Dubs, we seeing them. So now it's starting to be friction between us and them. And at that time, they were 25th Street Posse, not 25th Street BPS. It was early. So now we're starting to have other people that we're having problems with, like we're having problems with them. But now, at the same time, more of them were our friends. More of them, DJ and all that. We dealt with them.
Cat,
we went to school.
that's my nigga.
Big Cat, we grew up with them.
So the 25th Street Posse eventually became a clique of the City Stones, because the City Stones always had 21st Street. But now they have 21st Street and 25th Street.
Right. But before they were that, they were just 25th Street Posse.
And who were the main guys that started that? The 25th Street
I don't know who's. I really can't say. But I know Cat got something to do with that thing.
Yeah, I don't know. You would have to ask my little homie, Lil Alibob.
Yeah,
shout out to Lil Bob.
Shout out to Lil Bob. He can tell you
because he kind of grew up with them and he ran with them before he came. In fact, you know, if you read his file, you would probably think, you know what I mean, he would have been a 25th Street. Somehow he ended up an MVP. But yeah, it's love there. You know, Bump, you know, my nigga Bump. You know, it's love because we all went to school together.
We all went to school. We all played basketball against these cats.
You know, my nigga Tanel, we from
1400 block. Shout out to the 1400.
We used to play on the same basketball team. You know what I mean?
At Normandy Park right here.
So it's kind of like
Tahan.
Tahan, yeah.
And I lived on that block.
Yeah.
So you're seeing other crews that are changing their identities to Blood, and I guess a lot of the newer generation of MVPGs was like, man, we gonna go this Crip route.
Right.
Yeah.
We already saying cuz, we already kicking it with, you know, the Crips in the neighborhood. We already got allies, you know, when it comes to like business, you know, the schoolyards, you know.
We doing business a lot of times,
you know.
A lot of
we had a lot of love. So
Crips.
yeah, it was one of them things where it's like, I guess, you know, the homies was like, fuck it, we gonna just do this Gangster Crip thing.
Now, were you guys influenced by the By Yourselves? Because they also made the transition. I don't know if it was before y'all.
No, because they were enemy. We weren't ever influenced by anything they did because they were enemies.
Yeah.
They ended up becoming Gangster Crips also.
We don't know their timeline like that.
You know, we don't know because at the end of the
enemies.
day, they wasn't like at that time. You know, they was kind of fading out. Like, you know, I'm not gonna say fading out, but some, you know, you always have your members that want to step their gangbanging up. You know what I mean? So some of them probably was claiming Mansfield over the years. You know, I don't know, but we was never really influenced by them because even though we might have had somewhat of a beef with them, it never really went nowhere because we didn't really run by them like that.
Right.
You know.
Right. True.
You know, we didn't. They was all the way on Pico.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we was more closer to the Mansfields than we was
on
anything.
The Venice side.
On the Venice side. And then you get on the Washington side, you got the schoolyards.
Right there.
That really would be considered, you know, if before the MVP, that could have been
considered, but they never hung on that.
But they never hung on that end. You know.
I want to talk about another group that kind of faded out. They were off of Venice. The Vinton Avenue Hustlers.
I remember the Vinton.
Yeah.
A couple of those guys. They weren't high in numbers.
Philly, rest in peace.
Yeah, Philly, rest in peace, Philly.
Yeah, you know, the Vinton. Okay, so the Vinton, we don't know when they started. In fact, I don't really know anybody from Vinton other than Philly, and I was introduced to Philly through my cousin Crazy D from Marvin, which him and Philly they was tight. You know what I mean?
Now Philly, for those who don't know, is Philip Walter Marion.
the guy that Snoop Dogg and his partner Malik went on trial for murder for
Right.
back in '92.
I believe 92.
And rest in
93.
peace, Clarence, too, man.
Yeah.
'Cause that's our other cat, too.
And a lot of people associated Philly as being a by yourself, but he was really from Venton
Right.
Avenue hustler.
Right. Right. They because he hung with nothing but bio cells. And like he said, the Ventons was kind of small in numbers, you know. And like I remember they hood being behind the Taco Bell off of Crenshaw for whatever
That's
reason.
what I remember.
Yeah, but
You know.
Venton is right off of it's in Palms.
Right.
Venton Avenue's in
Yeah,
Palms.
in Palms,
Right.
yeah.
So that's where they get the
kinda
name from.
I don't
So
know.
I don't. I wasn't really too up on them. Like I said, Philly was the only one that I've ever met. You know, but I know it was other Venton hustlers. I knew of the names back then, but they never really developed in anything. You know, big. So that's why I think that they included Philly because he was always with the bio cells. You
Okay,
know.
so there's also the Homeboy Criminal Gang, HBCG.
Right.
They formed, but then eventually y'all have a nice connection with them.
The connection was 211.
211 click.
That's 211
You know, a couple, and it was like
we
it
had a
was-
lot of the homies that start hitting a lot of licks.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
And they was doing work with them, and it was like, you know, that's family once again to me, you know, because a lot of them, Quiz, my nigga Quiz, shout out to Quiz, he, you know, and they come from that West LA area, the Creek and all that. So
Right.
it was and then they didn't get along with the E-Dubs.
So that was
you know.
another thing.
But for us,
but we never
Never.
clicked up with them like that.
Like that,
We
because-
just got they were just like Gramercy, somebody who we got along with.
who we got along with, and maybe
you
have
might
a
see
party.
us over there.
Yeah.
We might party with them.
Yeah.
You may see them over here
But
posted with us.
we wouldn't put in work with them or nothing like that.
We didn't have the
You know.
same beefs like that. you know what I
Nah,
mean?
because I believe at the time when they came out and they was really beefing with E-Dub, our beef was simmered. It wasn't, you know, it was after the riot. So
Yeah,
nothing
it wasn't
really after the
nothing
riots
popping.
went on the books with us and the E-Dubs, you know?
Now Homeboy Criminal Gang, that was in Marvin area.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Creek, you know, they was over there by the Creek over there, the West LA, and then, you know, some of them lived on Marvin, you know, and yeah, that was kind of a little baby clique coming out of the Marvins. I'm not sure, I don't want to speak for them.
But once
you know,
again,
but-
assimilation takes hold. Let's
Yeah.
just keep it funky.
Yeah.
Let's keep it real. Assimilation takes hold.
Yeah.
Sometimes the neighboring surrounding people push their line and say either y'all gonna do this or it's
Yeah,
You know
and
what I
it
mean?
all depends on numbers. You know what I mean? Because, you know, obviously, if the surrounding gang in the area is low on numbers, and then you're building, you know, and they still have an influence in their area, and then you're building a gang up under their gang, you know, and you expect to take a street or two when their gang is kind of whittling away in number, they're gonna want to come over there and put strength in their numbers, you know. So it makes sense, but
assimilation.
Now after Dre gets killed, you guys start to lose some more MVPs over the years. By the time you get to the early '90s, who's the second MVP that y'all lost?
Cino, rest in peace. And I believe
peace,
that he got killed like coming from like off of Venice, like the bus stop. That was just a random shooting or something like that. I don't know if it was like a Hispanic and black crime
Or something
You know,
like
I
that.
think the Hispanics. I don't know if it had something to do.
They
with
never
Hispanic
really
gang.
said,
They
like-
never really said. You know what I mean? So we lost Cino.
We lost a lot of homies due to robberies
the
and stuff like
robberies,
that.
yeah.
We lost Lil Tip, rest in
Yeah.
peace, to a robbery. Chaos
Chaos to the bank robbery.
to the bank robbery.
That was the
People
next
start
one.
doing
Yeah.
licks and then stuff start happening. You know what I mean?
Right.
On these licks.
Now Chaos got into a shootout with the police, right?
Yeah.
Or so they say.
Yeah,
So they say.
Yeah.
So what happened was they say, allegedly they was going to be robbing the bank, and they was approaching the bank, and some off-duties or undercover cops seen them, and then it was a shootout. And he was one of the ones that got hit. A couple people got away. That wasn't done with the MVPs. He was like the only MVP on that situation, so we don't really know, you know, the details.
But
know?
but what started happening more prevalently around that time is people start clicking up to do robberies.
Ocean 11.
Yeah, they start doing Ocean 11 every goddamn day. And
They
see
would just,
that-
you know, you'll get one of the homies be with somebody from 60s or
and then,
Harlem
yeah,
or whatever.
and then whatever, and then they
link
go
up.
do it all together.
Yeah, and then they
Now,
split
you
the
feel
pot
me?
and boom.
Yeah,
So,
like,
you know, whoever they do their little job or contract the job with is who they had to deal with. So we didn't really know. In fact, I caught a case slightly after that, which they tried to implicate me in that crime because somebody, I guess one or two people did get away, and it was brought up in my hearing because when I got pulled over, they found a LA Times article in my trunk of And then they say, oh, he's from MVP, and they put it together. And so I had to pay the attorney during trial, so they had to strike that because there wasn't no evidence
But
that
they
I
was trying, though, huh?
They was trying because of the newspaper, and then me and Chaos was from MVP. But that was something that just happened out the blue. We didn't know nothing about it until we heard about it.
Now, every neighborhood goes through this, every group, I believe. I guess the smaller the group, the less prevalent it is. But did you ever have to deal with somebody that became a snitch or an informant that was actually an MVP?
Yeah,
I got told on. I got told on.
Yeah, definitely.
I got told on.
Definitely.
I got told on by somebody that I protected that night, huh?
Right. But he wasn't even, it was his first rodeo, let's say that. This guy that told on him, he didn't even really know the guy. Somebody brought him, he recruited. It was his first rodeo.
He wasn't seasoned.
He wasn't, I think he wasn't even out the pack yet. He was on his way home from the supermarket.
I don't think he was on 7 months or
Well,
something.
let me ask you then the same question, but from someone that you were really shocked, like, wow, this dude told.
I was shocked.
No, but like,
No, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
So somebody that really meant something.
But
that
just
was
think about it, would
inbred.
you be shocked
Yeah.
if somebody that you protected?
Still
actually?
shocked because you end up going to prison.
Right.
But my question is, someone that y'all that understood the code, was seasoned, seasoned
Yeah.
in these streets, but then eventually became an informant or a snitch.
I wouldn't say nobody that's from the hood that
we
really
know
meant
specifically.
something. But I can say, my little homie was told on. Lil Bob on the job, which he ended up getting 10 years, 8 months behind. I'm not gonna say the cat's name, because he is a little, and I wouldn't want to do that to his big homie and put that smut on his big homie name. But yeah, it happened, and
it happens.
and it happens, so. It has happened, but we really didn't have to deal with, like he said, most of our homies that was going to prison was doing robberies, and they was getting caught dead bang. So really nobody had to tell. You know what I mean? I'm not saying that just to kind of curve the question. It's most likely if you're robbing something and you get caught, who telling
who?
Yeah.
So that was most of
Everybody
what
in
it
jail.
is. As far as like the work that was put in, from the hood and everything like that, it was a couple people got told on, and like I said, but nothing major, no RICO acts or, none of that,
Now, when you guys went to prison, there were very few SNY yards in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Were you guys up on, like, where would they put all the molesters and all of the rapists? Because now every prison's got an SNY.
Right.
Vacaville. Vacaville was where, if you was going up to Vacaville, you either said you had a medical problem or you was going up there to house with them boys. You know what I mean? That was certain dudes' way to get out of that yard with the politics, So, yeah, Vacaville, I know for sure, was one of them prisons that guys was going up there that was telling, that was either, trying to PC up and or, wanting to spend some time with some boy cakes, if you will.
We didn't really talk a lot about the worldwide hustlers, but they were pretty close with the by yourself.
Yeah, by yourself, and like I said,
automatically they would be rivals to y'all, right?
Right.
But
Worldwide.
not really, because Worldwide, the beef of Worldwide was first.
Mm-hmm.
It was first.
Oh, before by yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. It was first. I remember that specifically.
First.
That was one of our first beefs, was the Worldwide Hustlers.
Right. Yeah.
That was one of the beefs where we actually was seeing them. We would go places and bump into them and have
fight
to get
with
in.
them.
You know what I mean?
They
were one of the. I remember
on a couple of them. Yeah. Well, the Worldwide Hustlers. I can't really say what really created. I think it was just more of a
girls.
We don't like them.
Stop playing. It was
what I'm
girls.
saying? We don't like them. They taking our bras. You know what? And I can contest to that. You're right, because I remember.
Girls, man.
I remember one incident at Wall Women. I went to Wall Women, and I remember a couple of Worldwide Hustlers came up there looking for the homie Big China because he took his woman, and Big China didn't go there. But at the end of the day, it
Shout
was
out
girl.
to Big China.
Yeah, C-Mac. You know what I mean? And it was girls, but it's crazy because like I said, I knew a couple Worldwide Hustlers before the MVP thing, but that didn't last long. That was more like an in-house school beef, but it kind of phased out because there wasn't no real reason to keep putting energy in that, for them or us,
Now, was there like a pimp
alliance? Because there's another group called IMP, International Pimps.
Them the homies. Shout out to the IMP.
Shout out to the IMP.
Yeah, them the homies.
Them the homies. No alliance like that.
No alliance like that, but we knew
they the
them
homies.
and
we
didn't have,
them.
you know.
We functioned with them.
Yeah.
We didn't hung out with them before.
Because there was quite a few groups that had pimping, and I know on 107th you had I don't know what they call them, down-ass pimps.
Down-ass pimps.
Down-ass pimps.
No relation to them.
No relation to them.
You guys never thought that, hey, maybe all the pimps should come up under a car.
No.
We was having
we never was down with assimilation.
No, we
That's
never.
The thing.
We
don't want to mix
always,
it up.
Yeah,
we
but
want to be us and you be you.
The reason why we was cool with a few with the IMPs was because the homie Menace was connected to one of the IMPs that
No Good. Big No Good. Shout out to Big No Good.
Yeah, No Good. And they had a good relationship, so it was love there. But we never allied with them or put in any work with them.
I believe we have different enemies.
Yeah, they might have had beef with the E-Dubs. I'm not sure. I'm not sure who they was really beefing with because they was located at a different
geographically far away.
I believe
90s?
In the 90s where you seen Kato.
Yeah. 90s?
Yeah, so
Vermont area.
Okay, so where is MVP GC today? Where does it stand today?
You want to start it? Because I can sum it up, but
You know what? I'm gonna let you put the period on it. Let's see what
so
bro
MVP today is definitely a lifestyle. We live most valuable. We live this. We don't claim it. We don't. It's still gang related relationships that we have. We still got homies in the prison, stomped down, doing time. Some people doing life.
Shout out to Lil Slub.
Shout out to Lil Slub, Lil Smiley,
Smiley.
Lil Aki. And but MVP today is a lifestyle. Because when you know better, you do better. And so, today we got, instead of, claiming Most Valuable Pimp and pushing that, we already know that we live that. So we got the Valuable Investment Group. And what that does is we're going to keep it real valuable. We like to do it the most, because that's what really MVP was. We do it the most. We keep it real valuable. We love pimping, because we do the girls, and we keep it gangster cripping. So MVP today is a lifestyle. I would say more of a lifestyle. That's what we live. We business owners, we homeowners.
Like when before we wanted the best this, we wanted the best that. Now we are at the point that we can have the best.
The best business.
Where is the actual neighborhood that you guys had over there on Orange Drive and all those youngsters that started repping it? Is there still a representation over there today?
There'll always be a representation because the homies still go through there.
Yeah.
You see?
Yeah.
So their families and the people that they live there, they've moved on to live wherever they live. But they mamas and their daddies and stuff, they still live over there.
Yeah, they still live over there. And the geographics over there changed because obviously those homes are being sold and knocked down.
Right.
And
turned
sold.
into apartments.
Today
it's a lot of different changes going on.
Yeah, so it's as far as like the connection to there, it's not like the connection to the homeland of LaSalle.
Right.
That's why we on LaSalle right now. We own property on LaSalle.
Right.
Family owned.
This land that we own.
Chip family, mom still live there. The Howells still live there. The homie Larry Lang family own
that house.
Own that house. So we still have connection to the birth of where it is. That's why LaSalle was so valuable to this whole birth. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna keep it real. I wouldn't really want to be doing an interview with nobody but my cutty here because we've been through some shit. We may not all the time disagree, but we know how to phase off each other to where everything can be complete.
Absolutely.
And this is why we on LaSalle now. I shot a video over here last year before the COVID called Where I'm From. It's a rap video. I ain't no rapper, but I felt like I wanted to put something on wax. And we shot the video right here. We shot the video in
all in the hood.
All in Orange Drive.
All in the hood.
Started in the Marvins because of course that's my birthplace, you know what I mean?
All that burger factory, everywhere.
Yeah.
So that video's online right now?
Yes, it's on YouTube. I'll shoot you the link, Now
when you guys became Gangster Crips, you was in prison, that automatically connected you to that West LA Gangster Crip card, PBGs, Marvins,
Mansfields,
A-Trade Gangsters and all that.
Yeah, and then for the rest of the
shout out to the
for the rest of the city too.
So what did that kind of do to the hood, MVP? Connections.
What it did is it already solidified what we was doing anyway. Mm-hmm. Like that's what it really did. It just put the stamp on it. You know what I mean? It's just like if you know how to do something, you know how to fly planes, right? You already know how before you go to school to fly planes.
Just go get certified.
You're just going to get certified. You're just going for the certification.
That's it. You already got the skill there.
You already got the skill. The skill's already there.
What that did to the hood too also, it established us where we at. finally, you know what I mean, the final place, because obviously we're not, you know, out here recruiting no new guys, you know, or nothing like that, because gangbanging today, and Nip said it best, you can't do gangbang today like we was back in the days. You know, we got the rings, you know, different, you know, policing is different, and time
Snitches is different, times is different.
The energy, you know, for me personally, I can speak for me, being a valuable, is to continue, you know, how you live your life is how you leave your legacy. You know, my legacy ain't you know, these streets that we name our hood off of, we get tatted, they was here before us and they're gonna be here when we're gone. Yeah. What kind of legacy are we gonna leave, you know, to our family that really, that matters, and the family that we create through the hood? Because obviously, at this point in the gang, everybody that wears the same jersey ain't really, you know, moving the same way.
Team.
Yeah, moving the same move as you. They may claim the same hood, but, you know, you have your, you know, your people that, you know, ride the way you ride. So it's where the legacy at. MVP today is a lifestyle. You know, we like to do everything valuable, and we know you can't find valuable everywhere.
Now, when they made that change over there, that meant rivals with the schoolyard, automatic. That meant rivals with the show lines, right? Automatic.
Which we already had a little issue with them in schoolhouse with the show line, but
right.
Go ahead.
Did it really change that much in terms of those?
It changed for the people. I'm gonna say it like this: it changed for the people on the ground. You know what I mean? Once that happened, he already owned his house. He already owned, you know what I mean? We was already prepared by then, us specifically. For the ground people, for the people who were at ground level, it did something, you know what I mean? It made it rough for them. And it made it rough for some people who was in jail. If you didn't know, if you didn't have the right information in the right place and time, when somebody asks you where you from and what y'all represent, then you might have a problem. You know what I mean? Are you gonna be able to handle that problem?
Now, who's the last generation of those soldiers on the street that pushed that GC from MVP to where it kind of faded out?
I would say the 23rds.
Yeah, we came out with a little clique called the 23rd at the time. We didn't really get established much of a street boundary there, because to me, I feel like this. You know, if we ain't making no money on the spot, we really can't claim so much of it. But the 23rds was the last little generation, and some Orange Drive, because Orange Drive was still, you know, like Baby Aki,
right.
you know, and some other cats. I don't really want to name some of those dudes.
Shout out to Divine.
Yeah, DD, Divine, and
So where were the 23rds at?
They actually, 23rds was mostly Orange Drive. You know what I mean? But then they came out with their own little clique, and
that's, you know, that's basically off of
like West
Boulevard and before the freeway.
Yeah, by Best Burger, you know, on that side of Best Burger. So that's where 23rds was. It wasn't really, you know, it was a harbor spot where we can kick it, but the homies didn't really put too much history, so we don't really.
It wasn't even. It wasn't even that.
What year was that?
I would say that was after the 90s. They was popping when I got out of jail. They still was popping.
Yeah, so like I would say like
99,
90, mid
98,
90s, 97.
That's Lil China. Shout out to Lil China.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Lil China, Lil Slug.
Lil Slug.
You know, Lil Slug he's in prison doing a long time right now. But
that's some of our young ones that was out here wild.
And that's when they started giving the big time. So, you know, in the mid 90s, man, you get caught up and you take a deal that'll put you under for 85%, and they was giving big time for robberies. And that's what our homies was in.
Yeah.
They was in the macking, what they called macking back then, you know, home burglaries,
that
robbing.
That was before they called it flocking.
Yeah.
There was no, flocking is just the same thing that a lot of y'all was already doing.
Right, just a different name.
Macking.
Yeah, it just came out with a new word.
That's all.
So the 23rds is, I guess, amongst the last generation.
They are. And they didn't. 23rd could have kept going, but they didn't do a good job recruiting, and that was a problem. Our generation was the recruiting generation.
But being over there by the West Boulevards and y'all's gangsters,
we all right though.
West Boulevards don't push that gangsters.
We was by then we were strong. Once we strong, it don't matter.
And we had our little friction, a small friction. He don't know because he was in the pen, and that's how to know that it didn't even last that long. Like we had people that we knew already from West Boulevard. that
But
we
no,
was
we
cool
had
with,
we
you
had
know?
problems with the West Boulevards too.
Yeah, but we had problems. That's what I'm saying.
Because I got into it with the West
Yeah, that's what I'm
Boulevards
saying.
on
We
more
had
than one occasion.
our little issues, but it didn't really blow up because we wasn't really doing much on that end.
And not only that,
You know?
it's not even a lot of West Boulevards over there for you to get into it with, bro. Let's
Yeah.
keep it 1,000. By then, the gears in the West Boulevards, numbers was down. Shout out to Big Ray Ray. It's something that we still know that's around, but in their area, in that arena, they wasn't there like that.
And we wasn't there like that.
Right.
Because the homies was moving around. Even though they was on 23rd here and there, it wasn't like the way we kicked it on LaSalle, and it wasn't like the way we kicked it on Orange Drive.
Because they just didn't have it like that.
They didn't have the numbers.
The numbers.
So they wasn't disrupting anything.
But they was over there.
But
for
they was
sure.
over there.
They definitely was over there. making noise.
And people knew that was us.
Yeah, pretty
you know?
much.
When did this whole movement started for the gangster card for the trays? Was that like a '90s thing?
I believe so. I think
that's what I'm
it started like a prison. You know what I mean? Most things most
Start in
cars
jail.
start in jail. You know what I mean?
That's some dudes that lift weights together. Nigga, we gonna call it moving. Okay,
Yeah.
we in the moving core.
Yeah, so I think,
Yeah.
the moving thing came like 90s, like mid to late 90s.
And then this came out with it.
Yeah, yeah, and which we keep it moving, you know what I mean? We with that, so.
All right, so final thoughts. Start with you. What do you want most people to know about the history of an MVP? Or is there any misconceptions?
I just want it to be known that, you know what I mean, that what we do is only what we do, and we are original. Period. Like, I just want us to be known for us. I don't want no extras. I don't want the salt and the caramel sprinkles on top. I want people to know the truth. And when somebody's speaking an interview, I want everything they saying to be accurate, so nobody don't have to come back and refute what it is you're saying. Mm-hmm. That's what this interview was about for me, because I heard a lot of misconceptions, misconstrutions, and misappropriations from other people's interviews.
Do you feel like you cleared up most of those things?
Clear.
Okay.
I think we crystal, huh? Right?
Yeah.
You got something?
Definitely. Yeah, definitely. For me, this interview is really just once again, it's something to add to my legacy. I believe in a lot of the interviews, people don't talk about MVP, but or even maybe they don't really know what we was heading for and what we was looking at. The hip hop gangster thing, that's in our guys. You know what I mean? And the fly cripping, what they call fly cripping today.
now.
You know what I mean? We was doing that fly cripping shit back then when we first turned crip with the dockers and all that, but we didn't just label it as fly cripping. Obviously.
That's back when you see somebody in the hole with a docker suit and a docker shirt, but he got a long handle in his pocket. People like, what? It don't fit. He looks like a businessman, but he's on that bullshit.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we was the first ones around this West LA to start doing that shit.
Yeah.
And we followed in the vein of motherfuckers like Chipper, who was 16 on Dayton's. You know what I mean?
So
we follow in the vein of Neckbone, who was out here with 3, 4 different sets of rims. Rocky, who was coming through every day, every other day, talking to India in 3 different IROCs. He got a burgundy one, a black one, and you know what I mean? We in the vein of that. We saw the wealth. We saw the value.
So the fly cripping thing on our part, was just us trying to adopt the crip, but bringing it in with our genre too. You know what I mean? But we didn't label it fly cripping. Fly cripping didn't really get known till Nip put it out there. Rest in peace, Nip.
Nip coined the phrase.
Yeah, and
Rest in
so
peace to Nip.
for me, MVP is just was part of my lifestyle. But like I said, it wasn't really never meant to, in my mind, to destroy lives or anything. It's a lifestyle for me. I feel like I like to live valuable, and I like doing it the most. And that's what I'm gonna continue to hand down to my kids and my grandkids. The lifestyle part of it, you know what I mean? The gang part of it was, of just something that being part of the environment, that I grew up in. And it was a lesson. Going to prison was a lesson.
Which was never the plan.
Right, never the plan.
Never the plan.
But for me, when I lose, I win. So, if it took me to go to prison to be the man I am today, I'm willing to put it down for that, because I learned, so I took something from that. And like I said, when you know better, you do better.
Right.
You know what I mean?
All right. Most valuable lesson you learned in prison?
Most valuable lesson I learned for prison is that everything ain't gotta take violence. Everything ain't gotta take violence. It took me all of that time to go from level 2 to level 3 to level 4 to learn that everything don't take violence. It don't. That normally is my go-to thing. I can normally fight before I mediate, or I can normally do what I'm gonna do before mediating. And I just learned from people like Cousin Kerry, shout out again, Banker T, Jabo from Hoover. I learned from so many people, so many brothers that was older than me. And these cats didn't have nothing to lose. They was in jail for life. They was basically 3 strikers. I was already in jail before them, but they wasn't getting out. And they was all on a level 4 yard. And then, you know, they taught me a lot of things that I even still do today. They said a lot of things to me that I still hold true today. Like, it's some real shit happening in there from them brothers in there. And if you open up your mind to them and just don't go with the negative first, you probably can get a good positive message. You know what I mean? That you could pass on to your sons. You could pass on to my kids, my nephews, my customers and stuff like that. You know what I mean?
Most valuable lesson you learned?
Time. You can't buy time. Time is the most valuable thing that we spend in life. And I mean, to wrap it up in a nutshell, you know, you can replace money, you can replace items, but you can't replace time.
Nah.
So that's what I learned. You know, that's
a good one. That's a good one, cuz. That's a good one.
Yeah.
Now, both you guys went to prison once.
That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
I've been out 25 years, I think.
And
Yeah.
did both you guys know when you got out, we'll start with you, that I'm never coming back here?
I knew that.
You knew that?
Because I wasn't really a jail-bound dude anyway. I also knew, though, that I could stand up under anything that I get myself into, but I knew that that wasn't the lifestyle that I want. You know, I was always, you know, the type of guy that I go for the gold, you know, and being in prison, life stops. And, you know, with that being said, I'm more, I want to take in what life has to offer because life is short.
And how did you feel when you got out of prison?
I had a plan. I was a person that came home and had a plan. The people told me I was coming back because 98% or something come back. They tell you in R&R, we'll see you, you'll be back. I told them, you'll never see me. You'll see me in the club. You'll see me on the freeway. You'll never see me back in this place.
You knew that?
I already knew. I had a purpose. 2 weeks after I was out of jail, I signed up for AFOC, April Freeman Occupational, down the street, down Washington, across the street from Trade Tech. I signed up for their barber program, and I haven't looked back.
The hardest thing living with a felony conviction when you first came home?
Finding employment and understanding what I needed to do to be successful, that it wasn't going to really be up under somebody else's clock. But I was blessed. I was able to come home, develop a job, get the supervisor position, and I gave at least about 10 homies jobs, you know.
More than that.
Yeah,
More
he
than
worked there because I was a super, I ran 3 stores.
Regional
you know,
supervisor.
yeah, so I was able to employ people, but it also allowed me to understand that, you know, having this felony, I'm gonna always have to be my own, make my own destiny, you know? So.
Absolutely.
And the hardest thing for you when you came home living with a felony conviction?
You know, to be honest, my grandmother made it really easy for me because she said, you can just come home. Your room is here. Just come home. I'm not giving you shit, but I'm going to give you a place to stay. You know what I mean? And that's all I needed.
I'm sure she gave you a little food, too. She
Yeah.
cooked?
Of course, man. Your grandma
Yeah.
gonna cook for you.
She
you
gave
know
you
what I
some
mean?
food and a shelter.
Absolutely.
You
But
just needed to put clothes on your back. That's
yeah,
it.
but I had some things lined up for me when I came home. Like I had a girl, and you know what I mean. I had some things lined up for me to the point where all I had to do is come home, go to school every day, and I went to the type of school that you could leave at school at 12 o'clock and go to work. So I was in the barbershop 2 weeks every day after I got out, and I had a plan.
That's the main thing.
If there's one thing in prison that you can change to make doing time easier for yourself and for the brothers that are in there, what is one thing you think the CDC should change? We'll start with you.
When I was in jail, they took so many things. I don't know if you know, but they took the weights when I was there. They took the family visits when I was there. They make time undoable, and they wonder why people wild out. Because you taking away the things that a person need to be able to get through to doing some time. I want them to give back some of the things that they took from the prison system so that these brothers can do their time and come home comfortably and not be wrapped up on some crazy shit all the time. You know what I mean?
For me, I feel like I really think it's the aftermath. Like, you know, I really wish that the CDC can set you up a little bit better with employment because, you know, obviously the CDC is in business to house inmates, right? So if they rehab everybody, then they're gonna be out of business, you know. And so it would make sense, you know, to somebody like me, a convict who was convicted, to come home and have some type, for those that don't have. See, he had a skill and he had a plan. It's a lot of guys that get out and don't have a plan and don't have support. So, you know, if they can, you know, open up a little bit more support for the afterlife, because doing time is doing time, right? When you mess up, you know, you do your time, you know, and it comes, you know, whatever you go through in jail comes with whatever wrong you did. We know that it ain't no right way to do something wrong. You know, it's only, you can only, you know, that's it. You know, so when you get caught with your hand in cookie jar, you gotta pay the piper. And so while you're there, whatever you go through is what you go through. It would be good to have stuff to educate so that when they come home, it's a system. You know, because they kick you out and then all of a sudden they like, okay, here's $200 and make your way. You know, so I would hope that I would, taking a little bit of what he said, you know, start prepping those that's interested. There's gonna be guys in there that don't care about that.
Right.
But for the ones that do, give them an opportunity to learn something and then come home like they used to do.
Right.
But, you know.
Now in 2013 or 14, they got rid of the indeterminate shoe sentence, where they put you in that cell for as long as they wanted to keep you in there.
Right.
I was at my first cellie, guy with an independent sentence. He was 70 years old. He had been down since 79. He was on a 5 to life sentence, and he was never getting out. And I saw him literally. He was one of them typewriter guys, and he had people coming sliding bags of groceries up under the door. Kev, pick up that bag for me and bring it in the cell. Foxworth was getting people out of jail, was beating 3 strikes. He was the first person I seen to beat 3 strikes. He was sending people home and couldn't get himself out because he was in there on the old law from the 70s, indeterminate sentence. He was a bank robber.
Wow.
And he was rich. He was rich.
Wow. That's
He showed you
crazy.
the bank statement and everything. See, I've been sitting on this and I'm working on that. I'm making that go up while this one go down.
Yeah. See, that's the prison system got to get better with that after, you know.
It's a tough thing to see. That man probably dead now. I've been out 2 years.
So I'm gonna thank you, brothers, first generation MVPs. The last thing I want to just shout out are the rest in pieces from MVP. We're never gonna forget the fallen.
Right.
The fallen would be, shout out to Lil Tip, rest in peace.
Lil Tip, Dre Low,
Big Dre, rest in peace.
Cino, Popeye.
Cino, Popeye.
You know,
Popeye,
Spud.
Mad Mob.
Yeah.
He passed too.
Rest in peace, bro.
Spud, rest in peace.
Spud, rest in peace. Art Rich, rest in peace.
Art Rich, rest in peace.
Lisa Mitchell, rest in peace.
Yeah, that's the homegirl from off Harvard.
T-Love.
T-Love, rest in peace.
T-Love and her baby girl, rest in peace together.
T-Love, our homegirl passed away giving birth. May she rest in peace.
Together.
Right. You know, so.
And everyone we missed, anybody we missed, rest in peace. We love you.
All the dead lokes.
All the dead lokes. We love you, cuz.
And on that note, thanks very much for giving us your story.
Appreciate it, man.
Cool.